Greetings. This is Griff Ruby, the Nostalgia Catholic, with another Isaac Asimov short story review. Well, this is the February 1962 issue of Scientific American. Not normally a place you would expect to find fiction stories. And in point of fact, if you go to the table of contents, there is no listing anywhere of anything, fiction or not, by Isaac Asimov. What gives? Well, something rather unusual happened in 1962. There was a computer and communications company called Hoffman, and they seem to have been centered in California. I've seen them make reference to things in Los Angeles and Santa Barbara, and so forth. Anyway, but they decided to start sponsoring short science fiction stories by real science fiction authors such as Asimov. In fact, they actually commissioned 2 stories by him over the course of the year, and at least a half a dozen of these different stories appeared as 2-page ads taken out by the Hoffman Company. So here, Hoffman Electronics Corporation, Los Angeles, California. Oh, look at that. He has an address there. 1761 South Hill Street. I wonder what you'd find if you went there now. But anyway, this is 1962, and Hoffman is really pushing for the future in a lot of different ways. And they figured having science fiction stories, preferably if they could in some way feature some vague theme about communication, however remote or tangentially, might be kind of an interesting incentive for people to look at their advertisements. Well, maybe it kind of is. So Asimov writes a story called My Son, the Physicist. And that's the story. And it says here, the fine print, I'll just read, it's hard to bring that up. Number 2 in a series of science fiction originals created expressly for Hoffman Electronics Corporation. So this was the second one. I don't know who the other's written by, other than we get one more that's by Asimov. So it features a lady who's basically the mother of the physicist. So she's Mrs. Cremona. And there's the physicist, her son. And then there's some other military brass that the son's talking to. And they're kind of conceptually featured in this drawing here. The lady in the foreground is obviously Miss Cremona. And the 2 figures in the background, presumably one of them is the physicist's son and the other one is the military brass hat, or they both seem to have funny looking hats, I don't know, but anyway. And they're talking about a communication problem. There's a couple other drawings here. There's one here showing sort of an orbital path of the solar system. I'm not sure what that elliptical thing is from near the sun to out to orbit. Maybe that's supposed to be some path the spacecraft might have taken because it got all the way out to Pluto. And then there's also this mishmash of letters and things, a jumble, but there are letters in there. There's like words and so forth. They all seem kind of random. You know, they look a lot like those CAPTCHAs you sometimes see where you have to try to figure out what the letters are and type them in. And the idea is that a machine will not be able to read the letters. A human being, however, hopefully will be able to read the letters to type them in. And then it says, okay, now I know I'm dealing with a human being and not some kind of a bot. Not a bad way to go. Probably they'll figure out a way around that, but that doesn't exist yet. And until it does, that's a fairly good way of verifying that you are indeed in communication with some actual flesh and blood human being and not just some bot out there. But anyway, that's how that looks. And the problem, there's a mystery here. They sent a probe out, and it was with people, a manned probe, and it was supposed to go out to Ganymede. It had about a year's worth of supplies to take care of the crew. Somehow this thing, I don't understand, it went astray and ended up at Pluto, which would have taken, according to the story, 4 years. And they don't have that much supply. So how did they get out there, and how could they be surviving? So the speculation is that maybe there's some alien intervention. Well, how can we find out? Well, we need to talk to them. But when something's out at Pluto, because the speed of light, despite its quickness, you have a full 6-hour delay for communication to travel in each direction. That can make a conversation very, very, very slow. Well, guess who comes up with the bright idea to at least make things more efficient in terms of communication? It's actually surprisingly good, although we probably would have thought of it, but in case we didn't, he's done it here. And it's not a bad idea, and if ever we do have that long of a communication, we can do that. So, the mother has come into this place, and I guess because she is his mother, she's allowed to come in. And she finds her way past various people clear to where her son is. And the son is talking with the military brass hat, like I said. And, how did they get out here? And maybe they had help with extraterrestrials. But we need to talk to them. But time is at a premium. We don't know how long. Maybe they freed themselves from whatever aliens brought them out there. Maybe they have limited provisions. We need to talk to them, and we need to hear from them as soon as possible. I guess it's assumed that they will be watching for us to send them a signal, and we'll be in a position to send another signal to us that we can read. So those problems are not discussed. So what do? Are they going to send some question out there? So how are you out there? And then wait 12 hours, because 6 hours to get out there before somebody there gets the signal, and hopefully they're receiving it, and they get the question and say, oh, yeah, here's the answer. And then they transmit it back. And then another 6 hours for that answer to find it's all the way back to Earth, where hopefully we will pick it up and know what it is and be able to say, that's the answer, whatever it is. And then, okay, so how are you doing? And can we get you back to Earth maybe someday? 12 hours later, maybe if communication hasn't broken down well, your time is at a premium. Their batteries might run out. I mean, you don't know. We got time's at a minimum. So what do? Well, dear old mother has a bright idea about how to make the communication a great deal more efficient, even though you can't do anything about the 6-hour delay for each direction that any signal must take. It's a very simple idea. She just knows, let's just say, being a woman, I might add, talk to a phone, to other girls over the phones. I'll leave it at that because I don't want to spoil the story. I do find a couple of very minor, very minor typographical variations. One of the things that seems to have happened here is a repeated use of multiple dashes for what becomes simply a single dash when it gets collected in, and this is where it went. It got collected in Nightfall and Other Stories, as simply My Son the Physicist. So it gets collected in there. So you've got this 2-page ad of Hoffman Electronics. One page is all story, the author, and everything like that, and maybe typically an artwork. The other page may or may not involve in his first artwork if they've got room for it or use for it or whatever. And only the final most column is the actual ad specific for Hoffman. And even there, whoever writes that copy can kind of tie it in a little bit. So by the time it all ends, well, it does end with a rather cute thing. I will include this little bit of humor at the very end. It says, big as he was and important as he was, that's the young guy who's the physicist, he still knew that a boy should always listen to his mother. In other words, she had a really good idea. Like I say, I won't spoil what the good idea is. You need to read the story, which is not only in this magazine, but in the Nightfall and Other Stories collection. Now, after that story is over, it dives into how science fiction becomes scientific fact. We at Hoffman are in the business of converting science fiction into scientific fact. As a matter of record, we've been at it for more than 20 years, pioneering and innovating in new fields and new things in industrial and military electronics. So, and it kind of starts talking about all these different things, and they've got a particular product that they're most particularly proud of and wanting to press. They've got this idea that you could install simple solar-powered radio receivers so that you could put them in like a town center of, say, a small primitive village. The solar cell provides the power, so all we need to do is just have a signal for them worth listening to in their language, etc., giving them news, entertainment, music, whatever. So as the community are gathered in their village, they can actually hear. That's supposed to be a speaker up there on the pole. And on top of that speaker, that little tiny thing is supposed to be a solar panel to power the thing. And they can be gathered there to hear it. So that's what they're advertising. And that's what it is. So it's a fun little story. Like I said, it's really, other than that, I don't see any real differences between the way it's in here and the way it is. But you don't have the advertisement, and of course, you don't have the artwork. So that's another one. Now, I notice I might as well introduce this one other small fact. As you know, his stories have definitely trailed and trickled down to almost nothing. He is, of course, writing profusely, writing fact, science fact, and other fact. He's probably already started writing about things like cultural things and historical things and linguistic things, and he even has he may even have started books about the Bible, and different things like that. So he's writing about all sorts of different things. But he barely at all has time to write any fiction. In fact, it's still winding down. The next couple of years after 1962, he will not write a single story. And in those 2 years, only one story will get published. We'll get to what that one is and how old it is. So his fiction career is definitely winding down. There's this short story, and then there'll be another one in my next review. And so this is it for now. Oh, in case you ever do get a February 1962 edition, since it's not in the table of contents, I will inform you that the story is contained on page 110 and 111. Since I don't expect to remember that, I prefer to keep a bookmark in that spot so that I will be able to find it easily next time I should ever want to look it up in the magazine. Thanks for listening.